Did you ask Mr. Bryan what made him grab his keys?
I did.
And what did he say? I'm going to direct you to page 8, line 21, into page 9, line 2.
I asked, and why were you going back to your truck? Why were you grabbing your keys? Mr. Bryan responded, I guess just to go see what was going on, if anything needed to be done, if I could help, or whatever. I mean, I didn't know. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know what I was doing.
Okay. So he said he wanted to know if he could help.
That's correct.
Roddie Bryan, he's the one who didn't have a gun. He had the cell phone. He recorded what happened to Ahmaud Arbery. But he's facing the same consequences as the other two men. And he's been very cooperative from the beginning. I mean, just speaking, we've seen the body cam before the trial started. We took a look at it. Today inside the courtroom, apparently he did a ride-along with the GBI, and that officer was on the stand describing what they were talking about as they were driving through the neighborhood. Take a listen.
They're coming up to a tree right here where you can see a sign. I think it's maybe a realtor sign. As they're coming up, he's expecting Mr. Arbery to go maybe around the tree, the other direction, but he ends up coming, sorry, not this tree, this next tree. He's coming up, he's thinking Mr. Arbery's going to go to the left of the tree, but Mr. Arbery actually goes to the right of the tree, so they're right there close to each other. We've just passed Holmes Road, and he, at this point, stops, backs up as Mr. Arbery makes the turn down Holmes Road. At this point, Mr. Arbery is ahead, and Mr. Bryan is essentially chasing Mr. Arbery down Holmes Road. Now, during this portion of the actual video on the day of the incident in February, he had dropped the phone. So, or put it on his lap, I think was what it was. So he's telling us what happened here, and he's saying how he went down a little bit farther. And here, if you pause right here, this is where we know that the video where he picked up at because of that driveway. And we're determining like where it was that he stopped at when he actually finally stopped and finished taking the video. If you see the stop sign there, you can see the intersection. That's the intersection of where the incident occurred.
Okay, so, I mean, it's obvious that they're talking to each other inside the car, but they didn't play the audio from inside the car during this ride-along reenactment. Let's bring back in Court TV legal correspondent Julie Janae to get some explanation. Exactly why was it shown to the jury this way? Just the video and then the officer testifying or narrating live on the witness stand.
This jury was given a transcript, and they had to actually go to the certain places in the transcript that the officer was speaking about. And this likely goes back to what we've run into before, when there's someone who is making statements that could be incriminating to one of the other co-defendants, then there's the issue of whether or not the others will waive the fact that they won't be able to cross-examine that person. So we didn't hear any of the statements, but we did hear the officer reading some of those statements that were made by Roddie Bryan, and you had them going through it. And there was more on the stand today from Seacrist that went to that point. Take a listen.
Didn't you just tell the jury when the district attorney was playing this reenactment? Didn't you just tell this jury, as you pull the truck in where the driveway is in the ditch, didn't you just show them on the video him angling and say that he did that? You just didn't use the word.
Yes, sir. He said that he did that during the reenactment video with me, but the wording was different than his explanation when he was interviewed by the Glenn County Police Department.
But based on your video, whether he used the same words or not, he conveyed the same meaning.
He conveyed the same meaning with different intent.
You know what's in Mr. Bryan's mind?
I don't know what's in his mind, but the use of the English language and the words can give some insight into a person's intent.
Are you trying to speculate as to what was in Mr. Bryan's mind?
I'm not speculating in what is in his mind. I guess I would be explaining what the meaning that I took to those words and what I would say is a general meaning to those words.
The prosecutors asked Agent Seacrist whether or not Roddie Bryan used the words blocked or cornered when he was talking about his movements that day, something we did hear on the body camera from the initial officers who interviewed Bryan on February 23rd, 2020. What's key to remember about Seacrist's interview of Roddie Bryan is it's after this case has gone viral as far as the video. It's after the McMichaels have been arrested, and there's so much scrutiny. You can even see in some of that reenactment video the memorial where Ahmaud Arbery died and people who were there, because at this point there's marches going on all of the time in that area because of the attention this case has gotten.
I want to bring back in the think tank, get a little more reaction to William Roddie Bryan. Let me ask you, does he get any credit from this jury for cooperating and speaking and doing the ride along and speaking to the responding officer and telling him all about the video that he recorded that no one else in the world knew about except for Roddie Bryan? He's the only one who knew that he had recorded what happened and volunteered it on the scene where this happened. Ian, does he get credit from the jury for any of that?
I think some of those jurors could say, look at that favorably. Absolutely. Particularly because the other two defendants, in contrast, the other two defendants, of course, didn't do anything. So it differentiates him from those two. It certainly makes him look better, more cooperative in their eyes. So yes, I do think that it can help him with this jury. And I agree with Phil from the last segment that they are going to look at him different, right? They're going to say, is what he did the same as what they did? Well, now you add this on that he also cooperated, and I think that will have a positive effect for him. Whether or not that gets him exonerated, I don't know, but it certainly will help.
Philip Dubé, I thought Bernard had made a really great point in our first segment talking about Roddie Bryan. He has no idea why he's following Ahmaud Arbery. And these other guys are going to talk about citizen's arrest, but he admits that he has no idea, and at one point says, maybe we shouldn't have been following him or chasing him or tracking him, whatever the exact word was that he used. But what does a jury do with that? A guy who just sees someone running and being followed by a truck and jumps in and helps in the chase?
Well, I think a jury might want to know if he was under a reasonable mistake of fact. Maybe he truly believed in his mind that because that kid was being pursued, that he could help, or at least, start videotaping what he's seeing in case, they're arrested or they get into trouble or there's some type of subsequent allegation made against both of them, and he is there just to preserve evidence. Now, on the other hand, it could backfire. A jury might see that video as a trophy. In other words, he recorded this as a form of a selfie video to show the world that he helped apprehend a fleeing felon or a fleeing trespasser. We don't know. But I can say that generally speaking, he kind of looks like the Good Samaritan in this. I think everybody can agree that he certainly had no intent to kill. The only thing I want to know is why on earth he did this ride-along reenactment. Let's all be honest, think tank. When the police want you to ride along with a video rolling, they're gathering evidence. And if I recall correctly, wasn't his lawyer with him at the time? Who in their right mind would let their client get into a car with the cops with video cam rolling? And
I'll tell you this, though, Philip. I saw it work once down in Sanford, Florida. There was a defendant named George Zimmerman that did all of that. And guess what? Not guilty.
yes, but do you really want to roll the dice? Of course it worked in that case. But generally speaking, law enforcement's not your friend. They're there to collect evidence. And now look, it's marked, that whole recording is marked as States 1 and it's being used against him.
Yeah. Bernard, let me ask you, how do you as a prosecutor in this case deal with Roddie Bryan's lack of consciousness of guilt? I mean, I see him and I don't see someone who looks like, we just got caught doing something wrong. Like, how do you prove or argue the intent of what he had in the way that he acted afterwards.
Okay. So, Vivi, you're saying you don't see consciousness of guilt. I understand that you see him more as Dumb or Dumber, the movie. So, in regards to William Roddie Bryan, I will focus on, remember, you don't have to prove consciousness of guilt as a prosecutor. So, that is just something that you can add on to prove your case. I will focus on the law itself, because if you focus on the law, and I agree, I think it's going to be very difficult to prove malice murder when it comes to William Bryan. However, I think you can prove the false imprisonment, that he intended to detain, to corner, to prevent Ahmaud Arbery from getting away. And if you prove that, all you have to prove in regards to the felony murder is that the homicide happened as a result of that. And I think that's why the strongest case that the prosecution has at this moment, with less issues, is unfortunately against William Bryan. And I think that just has a lot to do with the attorney that he has representing him.
That would, could you imagine if he gets convicted of felony murder and the McMichaels are found not? I can't imagine that happening, but wow, I guess it is possible. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about the other big case here on Court TV. Jury had the day off, but not the judge, not the lawyers, and not Kyle Rittenhouse. We'll show you what happened inside the courtroom. Some more fireworks when we return.